So let's jump back to an earlier time, 2009. Oh my god, this game is like 10 years old. Anyway, the game industry was in a bit of an interesting state. We were at the point when developers were starting to figure out how to properly plan and produce HD games, the power of systems like the PlayStation 3 were finally getting tapped into, and the same song and dance for years. A lot of licensed games were not that great. There were a few here and there that would stand out, but a good 95% of them were just shovelware. But then I started getting glimpses through screenshots and trailers of an upcoming Batman title called Batman Arkham Asylum. It looked interesting to say the least, and it had a lot of production value behind it. But a lot of people, myself included, weren't exactly setting expectations that high. And then I remember playing a demo for it at Walmart. It was the first combat challenge map if you were curious, and I was thinking, wow, this is actually like really well thought out. There might be something here. And when the game came out, it blindsided just about everyone. The game was praised wildly on release, and the landscape for licensed games were changed at that point. So much so that other superhero games are looking at Arkham for its inspiration. So does Arkham Asylum still hold up? Of course it does. Look, I'm not spoiling anything by saying that Arkham Asylum is a fantastic game. But I do want to see how it compares to its sequels now that the series is basically done at this point. And hey, we did have that Joker film earlier this month, so I'm in a bit of a Batman mood right now. So let's dive on back into the Asylum. Batman Arkham Asylum, first off, isn't tied to any previous existing media, so you don't need to get caught up on any movie or anything like that to understand what's going on. Well, it probably helps to have a base idea of who Batman is, but there are plenty of bios you can unlock to get more background if you need them. Anyway, the night begins as Batman is taking Joker back to Arkham Asylum, home for the criminally insane in Gotham City. But something just doesn't feel right. Joker breaks free, lets loose a variety of Batman's rogue gallery, and all his henchmen that were transferred from Blackgate, and now he's holding everyone on the island hostage, and it's up to Batman to take him down on the longest night of his career. For now, at least. As we get later down in the game, we learn Joker's true goal is to get his hands on this Titan formula, created by one Dr. Young. It's pretty much made of samples from Bane's venom that causes the person to mutate into a Hulk-like monster, and Joker wants an army of Venom Titans at his disposal. So overall, I think the plot is pretty good. Maybe a little simple at points, but this story knows that it's very video game-like, but makes it believable in the Batman universe, which is good. And it's more of a catalyst for the situation at hand, and to have the characters take it over from there, so I think it works out fine. Arkham Asylum overall set a brand new standard for production values for licensed video games for the time, and honestly it still has a lot going for it, for the most part. Right off the bat I want to talk about the voice acting, easily the best part of the presentation as a whole, as we have plenty of key members from Batman the Animated Series returning to reprise their roles. Arlene Sorkin as Harley Quinn, Kevin Conroy as Batman, and Mark Hamill as Joker, all giving fantastic performances. Though they do sound a bit different from their heyday, but it actually kinda works considering this game is supposed to happen late in the Batman's career, so kinda works out. The others do a fine enough job too, but the returning voice cast is easily the highlight, and the script writing gives them a lot of material to work with. Mainly for Joker, who, let's be real, just kinda steals the show. I also love the soundtrack for the game. A lot of great atmospheric music that fits well with the dark setting of the Asylum, and the combat and stealth music really highlight the action well, but is it me, or can you totally hear a bit of the Dark Knight theme in the stealth music? Another thing I want to mention is the sound design, mainly in the combat sections. Every hit sounds extra crunchy and loud, which makes the impact feel that much greater, and in a big group brawl, it really makes the experience go up. It's good stuff. Now, one thing I did appreciate that not many other Batman games did at the time was Rocksteady basically made their own world of Batman. One exclusive for the game, and you know, it wouldn't have been that hard to make a Nolan Batman since this was around the same time, but no, they made their own feeling and setting to the characters, which gives a uniqueness while at the same time being able to pull from whatever elements they wanted. And I think it makes a great overall interpretation. I love how gothic the world feels around you, but it still feels like just the right amount of comic book. Especially for the character designs, which feel very Jim Lee inspired. I love ones like Scarecrow, Killer Croc, and of course Joker, And I do like how this version of the Batsuit still has the classic gray and black, but the material overall looks a lot more durable and has layering to it, to look like there's resistance behind it. And another detail I love is that the suit gets overall more damaged as the game goes on, so by the end he looks like a complete mess. Which this was one of the first games I can really think of that popularized that idea, and it's great making it look like he's gone through a lot in one night. But there's one thing that still kind of bugs me about this design. I don't know, but I feel like this design just really emphasizes this guy is wearing his underwear on the outside of the suit. Like, look at it, man, it doesn't look like it has any practical use at all, and it's just staring at you. I can't help but raise an eyebrow at that. Well, speaking of designs, the general character modeling is pretty good, but even the main characters all have this kind of moving wax figure kind of look that was prominent in this generation, and sometimes the lighting really doesn't play well with that. And the side character models, man, they look dated, and barely any of them give off any kind of expression. Like for a man whose voice is clearly in distress,
Oh, I thought we were both gonna die in there.
his animation really doesn't reflect that. Also, the artwork you get for each upgrade is kind of odd. I mean, this one makes him look even older than Dark Knight Returns. This one looks like he's trying to do a Falcon up smash, and is that supposed to be referencing the Smacking Robin panel? Huh. But yeah, they're a bit out there, but let's move on to gameplay. So Batman Arkham Asylum is kind of broken up into 3 sections: exploration, combat, and stealth. In between segments, you're exploring the island looking for your next objective. Batman can primarily run, glide, though he can't gain any altitude by doing it, and use his grappling hook. Though I'd like to mention he can do this before you actually get the grappling hook later on, so let's call this the Batfish hook. There we go, let's go with that. You do pick up other gadgets such as the Batclaw and later the Super Batclaw, which, oh my goodness, look at this thing. How is that supposed to fit in your belt, man? That's like trying to put a 2-liter water bottle into your pocket. It ain't gonna work, man. But you do use these to break down walls and pull crates. The explosive gel, which can remove walls in your way or on the ground. A cryptographic sequencer that lets you bypass security barriers. And the line launcher, which lets you travel over large horizontal gaps. Now, besides just trying to get to your next location, you're also sometimes going to have to use detective mode, which lets you see interactable objects or scan items to follow a trail of blood or someone's breath. This one is still really dumb to me. But you also use it to scan stuff like the Chronicles of Arkham, which give you backstory on the Asylum's founder, Amadeus Arkham, who you can see quickly goes pretty nuts. You find Joker Teeth, which give you free experience, and the major side quest of the game, the Riddler. He's plastered riddles, trophies, question marks all over the island, and it's up to you to find them all. You can find a Riddler map that gives you many of the key locations, though, for a good majority of them. I do recommend trying to pick up as many as you can. For one part, I do like hearing him go from super cocky to squirming once you're close to finishing his quest.
What? You found that one too? Preposterous.
It's cathartic. But also for the experience. You can use that to gain new abilities such as more armor, more combat takedowns, or improvements to your gadgets and such. They're worth getting. Now once you actually encounter mooks, this is where your combat skills come into play. You do have a basic 3-hit combo, but after that there's a sort of rhythm you go into attacking enemy after enemy as you proceed to take them all down. You will need to watch out for a signal that appears above an enemy. Press the counter button ahead of time in order to counter them, spin your cape against knife mooks in order to stun them, and double tap jump in order to dodge or get behind someone. Press crouch and counter to automatically take down a mook, but you do leave yourself open for attack. And if you miss or get attacked, you'll drop the combo, so the goal is to make it through the entire counter with the highest ranking possible. And you can use gadgets such as batarangs or grapple hooks however you see fit. But sometimes they have guns and taking them head on is gonna get you killed real quick. That's where stealth sections take over. Here you have a room with maybe about 5 to 7 guards that you'll need to take out and quickly escape back to the shadows where they can't find you. You can do all sorts of things in order to take them out with a batarang, inverted takedown, pull them off a ledge, or my favorite, get one guy, cover his body with explosive gel, and wait for it, wait for it, wait for it. Got him! Oh, but don't worry, the explosive gel and apparently all of the debris is non-lethal. Yep, non-lethal. But seriously, use the gargoyles that are all over the place in order to help you with a quick escape. And you keep performing these sections as you continue to track down Joker and all the inmates. Once you're done with the game, you have challenge mode, which are based on combat and stealth sections. Combat ones try and rack up as many points as possible, pretty much meaning on the later ones you need to do a perfect run, and stealth sections it's all about taking out goons in specific ways, such as taking them out with a wall or a ledge takedown. And this is where the extra Joker DLC comes in. On the PlayStation 3 and Return to Arkham versions, or some modding on the PC, you can play as Joker in these challenge modes, replacing the mooks with guards and Joker's equipment. He doesn't have a grappling hook, but he does have a teeth bomb, a makeshift detective mode, and a single bullet gun that kills any guard with no questions asked. It's a pretty fun little extra, though I definitely will say it is a bit harder than playing as Batman. But alright, what did Asylum do right? So the good in Arkham Asylum, that's a lot. For one, I love the sort of Metroidvania design to Arkham Asylum. The game is pretty linear, but once you start getting those upgrades, you'll be able to start picking up more and more secrets along the way. And you remember areas that you were at before, which gives you incentive to go back and grab those extras. Which in turn gives you more experience so you can upgrade yourself even further, which loops back into itself. And Arkham Island itself is just about the right size. It's big enough that it feels like there's a lot to explore, but not big enough to where it becomes a hassle. Next, I think the battle system is really fun. While it's not as complex as something say like Bayonetta, I think the battle system accomplishes everything it needs to. With the simple kind of control scheme, the battle system is all about getting into a certain rhythm to keep your combo going. And even with the counter prompt, you can't just mash triangle to get out, as that will break your combo, so you really need to pay attention and keep that rhythm going. You take that, add in special moves that you unlock by reaching a certain combo length, such as throws or instant takedowns, the takedown punch which you need to time right or risk getting hit by another enemy, ruining the combo, throw in other enemy types, and the battle system really starts to shine. You see this the most in the challenge maps, where the whole goal is to keep the combo going the entire round. If you want to get the most out of the combat system, check it out. And if the counter prompts really are that much of a problem for you, you can just play in hard mode where that is disabled and you can truly become the Bat. And then comes the stealth gameplay, which honestly might be my favorite gameplay style in the game. I love being able to pick them off one by one, setting traps, using the environment to my advantage, trying to get special takedowns like ledge takedowns, crush them through a glass roof, or that explosive gel I mentioned. Good times. The mooks later on also get these collars around them, which calls a guard to a knockdown thug, which can both create more strategy for who you take down, or just give you more chances for explosive gel. Yeah, if you couldn't tell, I love explosive gel. And of course, I love the voice acting performances that this game has, and really lend it to making that Batman atmosphere, and make the world truly feel alive. Plus, all the winks and nods all over the place really do tell me that these guys love the franchise. I even love the little Easter eggs, such as in the library, you need to work your way up to be able to disable a bomb. After a certain amount of time, the Joker starts a timer for that bomb. Or you can just go straight up right away and he says you're trying to read the last page first. Just little touches like that go a long way. Also, on a side note, I love the guards in this game. Mainly for just being able to stand by them or walk in front of them and they have no idea you're there until a few seconds later.
He's here!
I love that so much. I do that with almost every guard I can. Or at this one chasm, all they do is just kind of taunt you. So what do? I grab one, pull them into the ravine, and then I clothesline all of them with my feet. Ah, good times. And while there are encounters with Batman's gallery of rogues, the best ones are easily Scarecrows, who plays with you by using recoiling rooms, dream sequences where you need to platform and stay out of sight, and of course the big one, a fake game crash sequence where they say to avoid a QuickTime event, you need to, what? Won't lie, first time, I luck. And yes, the game does, how do I want to word it? It's a Batman simulator? Nah. Step into the shoes of the Batman? Nah. Okay, Batman games in the past never really had a good blending of his intellect, combat skills, and gadgets. So we always kind of felt like a generic game character with a Batman skin over him. But Arkham managed to take all his best aspects and finally blends them together to make Batman truly come alive in a way he never really has in a video game form before, that allows the players to take advantage of that. Alright, fine, the game makes you feel like Batman. But that aside, Asylum does have a few weak points in its armor. So there are some things that bring the experience of Arkham Asylum down. For one, there's a lot of sections where you need to do some platforming around areas, and while these are okay, they feel a little out of place. His control scheme feels like he was built for stealth and combat, and then they made him able to platform. He just feels a little off. Again, it's nothing terrible, but you can see why later games don't have as much as this. While in combat, you need to go from one enemy to the next in order to gain more points, and Batman usually has a good idea of where you want him, but there definitely are situations where it feels like an enemy is just within range to hit them, but Batman doesn't go for them. Meanwhile, he can just fly across the room to hit another guy. It's a little inconsistent and will lead to some dropped combos. And while talking about stealth sections, as much as I love them, there are some clear problems. For one, gargoyles are far too overpowered. Guards barely look up at them, you can easily escape to them, and you have far more options at your disposal while on them than on the ground. They do later on try putting bombs onto the gargoyles that will explode and have guards hear them if you stay on them for too long, but it's only really used in the challenge maps and one time in the story, so most of the game is still Gargoyle Asylum. And let's talk about probably the most broken thing in the game, detective mode. I won't lie, this thing is a little too good. While I love being able to tell what enemies to look out for and where they are, but man, it feels far too powerful because there's basically no penalty for using it. You're never going to get surprised by anything because you can see it coming from a mile away, and in stealth sections, it's like the Swiss Army knife of info. Not to mention, it also has an effect on the game's presentation as well, because when you use it, there's this blue hue that goes over everything and shows everyone's skeleton model. When you have this on all the time, you're gonna miss out on a lot of the presentation, which is honestly a shame, and that does bug me, not gonna lie. Riddler can also be a sensitive topic. There's a lot to collect within it, scattered all over the island, and the rewards aren't really that apparent. But personally, I do find the extra experience to be worth it, and I don't think this game goes overboard with the amount. It feels just about right. Keep that in mind when we get to the future games, just saying. But honestly, the one major complaint I have with this game that really does take the experience down are the boss fights. See, remember that Titan formula I mentioned earlier? Well, pretty much every boss in the game is a giant Titan move, who you wait for them to charge, throw a batarang, dodge, beat them up, rinse and repeat for basically every fight. Even Bane himself has this same fight pattern tune. And this is all the variety you get in terms of the actual fights, since you don't actually fight Scarecrow and Croc is more of an environmental hazard than a boss. Ivy is the closest thing to an actual fight, but it's just batarang at an opening, so it's hard to call that a true boss. And the final boss is by far the worst part of the game, and such a sour note for the game to end on, unfortunately. Now, most of those are mainly nitpicking, except for the boss fights. That actually does kind of hurt the game a lot. But I'm more impressed by how Arkham Asylum manages to be not only a great Batman game, but a great stealth Metroidvania beat-em-up hybrid. Okay, maybe I need to get into a bit more detail about that. It says a lot about the quality of Arkham Asylum that it still holds up 10 years after the fact, and after all of its sequels. Asylum still has great combat, stealth mechanics, voice acting, and charm that make it a pleasure to go back to. And its Metroidvania design helps keep the adventure going, but not overblow it. It feels just the right size. The boss fights are the low point, but it's not enough to make repeated playthroughs not happen. It's still great like it was back then, and if you've never visited Arkham yet, it's definitely worth the plunge. There are certain games when I look back at them, I'm given much more of an appreciation for them, and Batman Arkham Asylum is definitely one of them. Now, if you haven't played the game yet, there is another version of the game out right now. So a little after Arkham Knight came a collection for the PS4 and Xbox One called Batman Return to Arkham, which is a collection of both Asylum and City using some of the enhancements from Knight, and including all the DLC for City and the Joker content for Asylum on both platforms. So with the redone graphics, I personally love a lot of what they did to the environments in Asylum. I love the outside mist and rain effects, and the lighting is just great stuff. Well, more lighting outside. When indoors, the shadows get way too heavy, obscuring details, and the game can look a little oversaturated with the colors that pop a little too much, and I think you clearly can notice it with Joker. Plus, the character models just don't look as good. I feel like a lot of detail is missing from them now. It makes them look even more clay-like. And weirdest of all, the game is still not running at 60 FPS. I get the new touch-ups and such, but I would have loved a performance increase, especially since the PC versions can run 60 FPS just fine. But overall, Return to Arkham isn't bad for the convenience, and it does make a few new improvements, but not all the changes work for the better, and the lower performance doesn't make it exactly the ideal way to play through the game. I'd still recommend the PC version personally if you can run it, especially with how often the game goes on sale nowadays. You can get it for pretty cheap now. And that was Batman Arkham Asylum. Now I'm already going to answer the question, when am I going to get the city? At some point. I just know that that one is going to be a beefy review, so that one's probably going to take a bit of time. And that's all I got for you today. I do love doing these Halloween reviews, man. It's always such a fun tradition on my channel. Anyway, I'll leave you to your holiday. Happy Halloween.